Welcome back to my channel. If you don't know who I am, my name is Edith and I like to read books and yap about them to you guys. And if you missed a few of my last videos, mainly not the last one but the one before that, you will have missed this, but I did in fact move. Yeah, I moved and I now live with my mother. And I thought to celebrate that I would do a video where my mom chooses the books I read. So, she's not going to be in the video. She doesn't want to be in a video ever. So, you guys are kind of just going to have to take my word for it that she chose the books I'm about to read. But when you see them, you will be pretty sure that I did not choose these myself if you know my reading taste at all. But I'm still so excited about it. I gave her a few very short rules. Basically, she got to choose 3 books. And I said 2 of them had to be from my new book cart behind me. Just know this baby's gonna be featured in every single reading vlog from now on. And she had to pick 2 from that one, and then she got to pick 1 from her own bookshelf. Now, if you don't know, my mom reads a lot of Danish books. She reads a lot of like history-heavy Danish books, specifically about like anything that happened in Germany ever. And now I knew she wasn't gonna be mean and give me like a thick history book on like Germany's history. But I was definitely a little bit scared. I had a few books low-key that I thought she might make me read because I knew she wanted me to read those. And I was pleasantly surprised. But first, I'm gonna get into the 2 books she picked from the book cart, and one of them I have already started. And that is in fact 1984 by George Orwell. If you are new here and you don't know me, I don't read a lot of classics, but I did give myself a goal this year that said I wanted to read more classics. So I guess this is kind of a good start to that. I also have a goal that says I have to read 5 books outside of my comfort zone. Also a great start to that. Yeah. Am I a little bit scared? Sure. Do I have any idea what this is about? No. It's about like how George Orwell pictured 1984 was going to be like, because this was written way before 1984. So it's kind of dystopian. And honestly, if I'd known that, I might have been more adept to picking it up before now. Once we get into the reading vlog, we're going to have a few clips, which is me reading what I've read so far. But so far, I'm on page 47, and I'm surprisingly really enjoying this. I'm kind of thinking tomorrow I'm going to be home alone. It's going to be a rainy day. What better way to spend it than lying in bed and reading all day? So I'm going to set myself some kind of goal tomorrow that I have to read a certain amount of pages, but we'll get into that when we get into the actual reading vlog. But this is the first book of the video, and I'm honestly very excited. And then to the second book she picked. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now, again, a classic. Gonna help me with my goal of reading more classics. It's gonna get a book off my TBR I would have probably kept pushing ahead of me. The thing was, she was like, you get to decide which one of these you want to start with, which one are you in the mood for, and I decided on this one. Another thing, I'd kind of thought about putting this on my spring TBR because I feel like the movie keeps getting mentioned as like a springtime sort of movie, but now I'm gonna be reading it now. I'm not sure if I'm going to be reading this or the 3rd book next, but we'll figure that out once we get to it. If you don't know Pride and Prejudice, it's like a classic romance. Not like classic as like a classic book talk, but like a classic romantic book. I don't actually remember anything about Pride and Prejudice. I've seen one of the movies once, many years ago, so that's about where my knowledge of this world goes. I know Mr. Darcy, of course, but that's about it, honestly. But I am, again, very excited about this. And then the 3rd and final book, which is kind of a funny story. So, like I said, I told her to pick a book from her shelf. And she had a lot of time to think about it. She looked on them through. We were standing out there and I was like, you know, you could always ask me to read A Handmaid's Tale, because I know she recently read that in Danish, has it on her shelf, but it's also on Kindle Unlimited on English. So I was like, you could always just, have me read that. And I was like, but you know what? I made it really clear to her that it's still up to her, and if she had a Danish book in mind, I would 100% still read it. And she was like, actually, I want you to check Amazon and see if this book is on there, because this book that I'm about to tell you is also originally English, but she read it in Danish and she has it in Danish on her bookshelf. But her rule, or like whatever she ended up agreeing to, was that I can read it on my Kindle if it was on Kindle Unlimited for free, and it is. And it is, in fact, I don't know if it's another classic, because I've never heard of it, but it might be. It's an older book. It's called The Professor and the Madman by Simon Winchester. And honestly, at first I was like, oh. I had a bunch of books of hers in mind that I was like, oh, she's probably gonna make me read this, and this was not on my radar at all. But she tells me that this might be one of her favorite books ever. And I honestly think that means so much, to get to read someone you love's favorite book. I don't know why my brain couldn't say that correctly. Basically, I think it's such an amazing way to like get to know somebody, is to read their favorite book. So the minute she said that, I was like, okay, put me in. I did read the Dictionary of Lost Words, which was why she got reminded of this, because that's also kind of about like the making of a dictionary. Two kind of different things. One of them is a little bit more feminist. This one is about a crazy murderer guy who ends up helping making the Oxford English Dictionary. It sounds interesting, and it's, oh my god, it's less than 300 pages. I was kind of scared it was going to be a long book. Yep, that's okay. Also, this one, I don't remember, but I have less than 300 pages left of this one as well. And Pride and Prejudice is, oh my god, there was an illustration in here. Look, that's so cool. There were more. Okay, so basically, I'm low-key excited for all of these. Alright. This one has 325 pages, so none of these books are long. They are heavier because, well, not heavier, but because they're classics, the language is a little bit old, and as a non-native speaker, the only time I feel stupid in English is when I have to read classics. So, I think that's enough talk, enough yapping, 10 minutes of yapping, Jesus. So, without further ado, let's just get right into this reading vlog. Alright, it is the next day and it's like 12:30. I'm about to like do my skincare because I'm trying to get better at that. Because I've been reading a bunch. Yeah, I have read, I think I was on like page 80 something when I started this morning, and now I am on page 188. So like almost 100 pages, and I have 125 pages left, which I did the math because I just filmed a how much can I read in an hour TikTok with this book and read 64 pages. So doing the math, it shouldn't take me more than 2 hours to finish it. However, I don't know if I have 2 hours more of reading this in me today, but I thought while I got ready, we could have a quick little chat about the book so far. Alright, so before I brush my teeth and clean my face, which I can't talk while I'm doing that, I was unsure if I was gonna love this. I read Animal Farm by George Orwell, and I think in like English class, I read one little short story, something about an elephant. That's all I actually remember about it. And I have enjoyed both of those. Didn't love them, but enjoyed them. I enjoy the stories. I've heard a lot about this, specifically because of the political state of the world, America, right now. And I was still a little bit like, will I love it, won't I love it, sort of thing. Because, first of all, it's a classic, and like I pointed out in the intro, classics have this kind of language that makes me feel a little bit stupid. I am, however, so far, and saying so far sounds so weird because I'm over halfway, so like, it's kind of a good place to be like, this is how I'm feeling about the book. I'm very much enjoying this. I'm kind of loving it. I don't know why it's so much different from what I thought. First of all, I didn't know how old this book really was, which means I didn't know that a book called 1984 could really be a dystopian kind of book, because I was like, well, that's so long ago. But since this was written in like, I think 1949 was when this was released, because he died a year later, George Orwell. And anyway, I love a good dystopian book, and for some reason, I was like, well, maybe it's gonna be a little bit boring. It's not boring at all. It's really interesting. Like, if you like dystopian books like The Hunger Games and stuff like that, I would still recommend this. In the book, we are in the future in a very, like, controlled world. I feel like it's very hard to explain, honestly, but there's this guy called Big Brother and the party, and they basically control everything. Like, to the point of, like, they control what you are allowed to think. If I've understood it correctly, they know what you're thinking, and they arrest people based on stuff they have thought. Like, there's this thing called the thought police, and then we follow this guy, Winston. I don't know why I didn't just say it because I was thinking it, but we're following Winston, who actually works for the party. I'm pretty sure he works for the party, but his job is to like look through newspapers and like correct them. So that's one of the other things the party does, is like they basically change everything, and slowly he's becoming more and more like, something isn't right about this. And obviously he's right, because like, he basically slowly realizes that like they control everything. You do not know what happened like 50 years ago, because they could have changed every single history book. They will have taken away every part of history that is not fitting into their narrative. Yeah, it's kind of insane, and it's really interesting, and I've gone down like a rabbit hole inside my brain multiple times of being like, it would low-key be easy to actually do this to society. I'm gonna brush my teeth, clean my face, and then we'll keep talking. Anyway, as I was saying, I think it's pretty interesting because I remember having like the same thought when I was reading Animal Farm, that it's kind of crazy that a book written so long ago can have such like a real, I don't know, like real life impact. I don't know if that's the right word, the right wording, but like it's crazy to me that a book written so long ago can still fit. It's the same feeling I have whenever I watch The Breakfast Club, because I'm like, we low-key still divide into little groups of like jocks and princesses and like the bad people and the good people and all of that. So it's the same, kind of having the same feeling with this, where it's like, this was written so long ago and yet it has never been, or maybe it has, but it's again now, so many years later, so politically accurate. Like, obviously not, because nothing like this is actually happening, But then again, I was about to say not to get political, but you know what? We can't read this book without getting political. So, honestly, I think it's just, I don't know. It's scary, but it's interesting because it's like, it's still fiction. Like, I don't think this book would be interesting or funny to read if we were living in it. But because it's still so far away that it's like a little bit unbelievable, it's interesting, but it adds on another layer because the more you think about it, the more you're like, it could become real. Maybe I'm crazy, maybe someone else has read this and they're like, no, that would never happen. But like, I don't think so, because I've seen multiple people talking about it. And literally the fact that they want to start banning books, they have already started banning books, including this one, should unfortunately show you guys that this could totally happen, because that's kind of how it starts. It's removing some of the literary stuff we have that kind of protects us from ending up where they are in the books. I mean, that was such like a topic of discussion on Book Talk right when Trump was chosen, because there was this big debate of like, is reading political, which I will always be a reading can only be political. Even the discussion of is it political or is it not is inherently making it political. And I did make a TikTok back then, I think, of like being like every single book is political, because a lot of people were picking up books like this and fantasies and being like everything is political. So I made a thing of like choosing a bunch of romances to be like, just to be like, you can't be like, oh well, reading for me isn't political because I don't read fantasies or dystopian books. And then I was like, well, you're still reading romance books, which is political. The fact that you as a woman can even sit down and read a book is political. I'm not gonna get all into it. It was a big debate for a while. If you're interested in it, I am sure there are more educated people you can look up on BookTube or Book Talk to see their thoughts on it. I just think it's interesting because, I mean, then you read a book like this, and like I just said 2 seconds ago, you cannot discuss this book without getting political. You can, but it won't be as interesting as getting political with it. But I think I'm going to continue getting ready, and then we're going to continue reading, because I'm invested now. I'm so interested to see where this goes, because it's getting interested. It's getting interesting. That's what I was trying to say there. So I'm gonna keep getting ready, and then we're gonna get back into bed and keep reading. Alright, the lighting isn't the best, but it's dark outside because I spent all day reading and I finished 1984. First of all, I feel like I deserve a round of applause for that, because I low-key, at some points, I thought this might never happen. That's how bad I am at classics. I was like, maybe it's never gonna happen. And just like with every other book I have on my shelf and I think, probably never gonna happen, I end up reading it and loving it. Maybe loving is a big word, but like I really, really, really enjoyed this. I just wrote out a full review, which I'm trying to do more often, on Fable, so make sure to follow me on there if you're interested in like those types of reviews, I guess, especially of like books that I read outside of videos, because I feel like that's kind of the only way to get those reviews. But I did already speak for like 10 minutes earlier today about my thoughts, so I think this is going to be a little bit of a quicker finishing thoughts. I ended up giving this book a 3.75, which is pretty high, honestly, especially because I'm trying this year to be a little bit harder with my ratings. So I'm trying to be more like, okay, sure, last year's you would have maybe given this 4 stars, but be more realistic. Like, really sit on it and think on it before I rate a book. But sitting on it and thinking on it, this is still a 3.75. no matter how I put it, I really, really enjoyed this book. I feel like 1984 is a book a lot of people talk about, and yet I like have no idea what this was about. And then my mom was like, oh, it's like a dystopian book. And I was like, wait. I was like, dystopian? Are you kidding me? Like, why does nobody lead with that? I feel like we should be better at, instead of classifying them as classics, remembering to put a genre on it, because I feel like a lot of classics I just know as classics. I keep them on my shelf as classics, which means that I never think of them as like having their own genres, which might just be stupid, it might just be me, but like I wish more people, instead of being like, oh, you should read this classic, be like, you should read this classical dystopian novel. That way, that I feel like that would have intrigued me a little bit earlier. Yeah, basically just that. But it's also very different from, I feel like, dystopian novels that we may know a little bit better, like The Hunger Games, Divergent, The Maze Runner, all of those things, because they always follow this like younger person who kind of ends up being like a hero. We have Katniss Everdeen, we have Thomas, we have, I don't remember the girl's name from Divergent, but we have her. Like, we always follow this young person who ends up being kind of remarkable at something. Either they learn how to fight, they're a good shot with a bow, they're like strategically smart, or like just brave, really. This, however, we follow kind of one of the most boring, average white men I have ever read about, and yet I enjoyed it. Like, that doesn't sell people on the book to say that, but that's what we do. We don't follow a hero. We're not even sure if this guy's like really up for like doing anything for the change. He's just kind of like living in this world, seeing things other people maybe aren't, and being like, that's kind of weird. And then he gets the opportunity to do something about it, and he tries, sort of in that field. There are many other differences, but some of them are spoilers, so obviously I'm not going to get into that, but like, this was just very different, but it still had a lot of great dystopian aspects. Most of them being like genuinely sitting around with this like kind of anxiety of like, this could happen. And I will always stand by that. Every single dystopian book you guys have read could happen. Because dystopian is almost never like a fictional thing. Like, it's not like a post-apocalyptic world with zombies and like fictional creatures. This is like human beings that are the cause of how the world ends up being. I actually think that was the perfect way for me to describe it. Without further ado, let's get right on into the second book of this video, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Alright, I think it's about time we do a quick little reading update. Actually, I don't just think, I know it's about time, because I have not talked to you guys at all about Pride and Prejudice. And as you can see there, I do not have a lot left. Hopefully for my own sanity, I can finish it today. If you know me, you'll know how much what I'm about to say actually means. I'm currently reading this physically on my Kindle and audiobooking it. And that's not a good sign. No, it's really not. That's kind of what I do when I want to get a book over with. I started by reading it physically, and I kind of hated it. I feel like maybe the first 100 pages I read physically, maybe even less, and I hated it. I was confused. I didn't like the writing style. because I was confused, I didn't get the plot, and therefore I didn't like the plot. And then I switched over to audiobooking while reading because I was like, okay, we're gonna immerse myself in this. Yeah. And one of the things I didn't like about the writing style, and it might just be because I'm stupid, all my thoughts about this book could be because I'm stupid, so do not take them to heart if you are a Pride and Prejudice lover. I don't like the way she writes dialogue. Not the way that people talk to each other, but the way it's described. Because there could be 10 people in the room, and not a single time will she be like, this person said this. She'll just write a bunch of dialogue, and you just have to guess who's saying what. And there are so many characters in this, which meant that, like, the first 100 pages where you're supposed to get to know the characters, I had no idea who was speaking or thinking what at any point in the book. So that's kind of a bad start. I was genuinely like, if this had not been Pride and Prejudice and I wasn't trying to like push myself a little bit more through books, I might have DNF'd it. And so I switched over to the audiobook. The audiobook helped with the understanding who's speaking when, because like the audiobook reader changes like tone depending on who's talking, and we kind of stopped with the huge groups of people right as I switched to the audiobook, so everything all of a sudden made a little bit more sense. I still think the story's a little bit boring. I still would rather be done with it. So, just to be able to play it on 2x speed, I switched over to my Kindle, because apparently proof that I read quicker on my Kindle, I can't follow along 2x speed on like the book, on the pages, unless I'm like really trying, and like completely relaxed, I can read it on the Kindle and follow along 2x speed. And it has helped. Trust me, it has helped so much. I think I understand way more of what's going on right now. Do I love it? No. But I don't hate it anymore, and I hated the first 100 pages. So all in all, like how I'm feeling right now, I'm happy to say that I have like about 2 hours left, maybe a little bit less than 2 hours left of the audiobook, and I'm happy to say that I will be finishing it up today no matter what. Even if I have to listen to 2 hours tonight before going to bed, I will finish it because I can't do it. And I'm so sorry because I wanted to love this, and right now I'm kind of just doing it so I can, I don't know, so I can like say that I read it, you know? So I can like, when people ask, I can be like, oh, but no, I might read a bunch of smutty romances and those might be my favorite, but I did read Pride and Prejudice, so like, it's not because I'm completely incapable of reading classics. The worst part about it is I have Emma, Jane Austen's Emma on my shelf too, that I have to read at some point. And right now, I don't want to read another book by Jane Austen ever. And this isn't, again, I get why people love Jane Austen. I get why people like this book. I get what she's trying to do. I get the entire, like, the snarky commentary at ladies of this time, but I'm also just like, come on. Yeah. So all in all, I'm not enjoying it, but I have less than 3 hours left of the audiobook. Let's actually check. My Kindle actually says I have less than 2 hours. An hour and 58 minutes, so like almost 2 hours, but still, this is such an improvement. And I will continue to listen to the audiobook. Honestly, I might put on the audiobook in the background while doing a bunch of other things. I've made it to the point where I'm like, I just have to finish it. And I do think that's a bad thing. I do think it's a bad thing. I do think it's a me problem, not a book problem. So like, my opinion of the book, obviously, is my opinion of the book. It's not taking away from the fact that this is a timeless classic and a lot of people love it. If anything, it's just making me feel more stupid, okay? So really, the only one I'm hurting is myself by doing this, but I'm just, all in all, I'm ready to be done with this. I'm done. Oh my god. I have, since we've spoken, I think I watched like one YouTube video and then I was like, no, you know what? Let's get this done. So I just listened to like the last 2 hours without a single break while I hung up the laundry. I read a little bit on the Kindle. At one chapter, I might have literally played games on my phone and not listened to what was going on, but just letting it play. Do I think some of my thoughts might be because I didn't give this book the chance it kind of deserves? Yes. Yes, I might as well put that out there. Yes. There are such a thing as like wrong book, wrong time, or like right book, wrong time. This might be something like that. I don't know. It could also just be that I genuinely wouldn't enjoy it no matter when. I am proud to say that I have now read Pride and Prejudice. I am proud to say that I could now sit down and watch the movie. Because I think I would love the movie, if that makes any sense. I've seen a lot of people like loving the movie because I looked up bad reviews just because I needed, there are two different ways to look at reviews. Either you can look at them before you read and you can let them like interfere with the way you're thinking about the book. And that's what I've learned not to do. But what I like to do is if I have a really popular book that I know people love and I don't love it, I like to look at the negative reviews just to have some people agree with me and be like, okay, so I'm not completely alone. And I did do that, and a lot of those people were like, I'm a little bit disappointed because of how much they love the movies, and they're kind of like, how could such a great movie come of this book? I'm not that much of a hater. Like I said, I am willing to admit the fact that I think a lot of what I think is wrong with this book is on me and not the book. With that said, I did talk for 10 minutes earlier and my thoughts didn't really change. I had moments of being like, I'm so bored, I don't actually care what happens to any of these people. And then I had moments of the romance of being like, so it's kind of cute, it's kind of cute. Do I feel like I know Mr. Darcy? Not in the fucking slightest. I couldn't tell you anything about him. I am happy that this is over, if I'm being completely honest. And I think, because I'm like, I wanna rate the book fairly and I wanna take into account that I might have liked it more if I feel like the first 100 pages, because I didn't like them, I was kind of prepared to not like any of the book. And so, like, the smallest things would make me annoyed or bored or make me think like, oh god, I want it to end. And then I was like, let me give it 3 stars, but then I was like, no, because 3 stars is like, it was good. Like 3 stars is, there was just as much good as there was bad. And I don't think that's true. I do think, from my current experience, there was more bad than there was good. It had its moments. Whenever it was just Darcy and Elizabeth, I kind of liked it. So I do think we're going to give this a 2.75. Now stick with me here, because you guys are going to be like, you have only talked shit about this book. Because that's not true. I have told you guys that there were moments I really enjoyed. When I first switched from like reading to listening to the audiobook while reading and got a little bit more into it, it had moments where I was actually intrigued. And I do think that maybe if I had read this at another time or something like that, I might have enjoyed it even more. I keep getting cut off and told that I have no more phone storage, but I just deleted a whole bunch of shit earlier today. So I know it's a lie. I'm gonna do this very quickly. 2.75, and now it's time for The Professor and the Madman, which is only 288 pages, which Kindle says will take me 4 hours and 30 minutes. So I'm probably gonna say like 5 to 6 hours, just because I probably am gonna have to get used to a new writing style and a new kind of classic. So, let's go. do realize that we're totally backlit, although I fear there may be a few shots in the clip of me making breakfast and my drink where it looks like I'm not wearing any pants. I'm wearing sleep shorts. Proof. But I'm also wearing a really big t-shirt, which is gonna cover it up. But I made breakfast. I made yogurt with an entire apple, a kiwi, and these little puffs that I have no idea what I would call in English. And then I made myself a matcha, and I recently got a whisk, so I'm trying to like figure out how to use that. I do know I probably need more of the equipment to actually get it completely right, but I personally love my own homemade matchas a lot. So anyway, I wanted to give you guys a quick reading update. Basically, very shortly, this book is about, basically, I'm just gonna read exactly what it says right here. It's a tale of murder, insanity, and the making of the Oxford Dictionary. So I'm a little bit, actually, I need to look up if it's low-key nonfiction. I mean, I think I might just read it as if it's fiction and like give it a rating and everything still. We're following two people. So far, I've only read 2 chapters. And so far, those chapters have kind of focused on introducing our characters. So the first chapter was about, I've already forgotten their names, but the first chapter was about the guy who's the murderer, who used to be an American, like, army guy, general or something, went insane. Maybe he's always been insane, but he's definitely insane now, like, actually insane. And he's, like, convinced that the Irish are out to get him, and if he sleeps somewhere where someone can get to him, he'll wake up and he'll, like, accuse them of having, like, done stuff to him while he was asleep and shit. And then he was living in this hotel in Britain when he woke up, and he thought he saw somebody, like a guy, standing over him, and he was sleeping with a gun. So he got the gun, got up, followed what he thought was this guy, and then he saw a guy running outside of the apartment complex, and he like ran after him screaming and shot him. And that was in fact like just a random guy with like a fucking wife and 7 kids at home who then died. So he killed him, and then in court he was like told not guilty by reason of insanity. And instead of going to jail, he has to go to this psych ward where he then ends up getting locked up with. And the other guy is like, chapter 2 was low-key way more boring because like he's just a regular guy. But he's very smart, and somehow he ends up being invited to help out with the Oxford Dictionary. And I think it's gonna be like those 2 characters end up like, I don't know, contacting each other somehow, talking back and forth, and then at some point they're gonna meet and he's gonna realize that he's been talking to a crazy person, but this crazy person has been helping him write the Oxford Dictionary. So that's kind of what I think it's gonna be about. I felt like I read nothing yesterday, but I think I might be like 17% into it, if I'm correct. Yeah, 17% into it. It does say it's gonna take me 5 hours to read it. I don't believe that. I think it hasn't like figured out how fast I read yet completely, because I've been like, yeah, I haven't been like focusing on just reading yet while reading it, but that's what we're gonna do today. Morning. It is in fact the next morning, And in case you guys couldn't tell from the clips, I did end up finishing The Professor and the Madman last night. I don't know what happened. I mean, first thing that happened, it turned out that there were like 100 pages of like extra stuff, like examples of like, if you wanted to know more, you could read this and this and this. And I was like, I didn't need to read all of that. So I just like finished the story. And I was done way before I thought I was gonna be. And I really, really like this. Now, this is nonfiction. Normally I wouldn't rate nonfiction, but I feel like it was kind of written in a fiction-y way. And also, it's not like, I don't know, I guess I'm not rating it. Actually, I am rating it like it's a nonfiction. And I end up giving it 4 stars. Which is amazing. I mean, this was just, it was really interesting. I wasn't really bored at any moment, which is like kind of shocking if you ask me. Like, it's literally about the dictionary. And like, even when the author went on these like long rants about the dictionary, it was just like, I don't know, the way he did it made it sound like the dictionary was the best thing ever. So all in all, I kind of feel like this was my favorite one. I mean, not kind of, rating wise, my favorite book I read. I do think it's between these two. I know I rated this one higher, but I honestly might bring it down a 1/4 star or bring this one up a 1/4 star. They're 2 very different books. I mean, fiction, nonfiction, literal dystopian book, and like something that actually has happened. But this did make me cry, and I think for that it does deserve a 1/4 rating more. So with that said, that is in fact all for today's video. We got to read 3 books that I probably wouldn't have read anytime soon if it hadn't been for my mom. So let's all say thank you to my mom for forcing me to read these. Forcing is a big word. I did ask her to choose books, and that's what she did. So really, it's not really because she forced me, but we're gonna say that. Just, yeah. I am very excited to get back into a few books that I think are more my normal style for the first time this year. With that said, I am really happy. I'm really happy. Even Pride and Prejudice that I didn't love, I am happy that I read these books. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you did, and if you want another My Mom Picks the Books I Read in the Future, make sure to give this video a like, comment, and subscribe. And also don't forget to turn on your bell notifications so you get notified every single time I post a new video. And I don't think there's that much more to say. Went over everything. So I will see you all in the next one. Bye.